Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast, and we have with us the gorgeous, as always, Paul Craig. And we spoke the last time you were on our show. I think Stu was telling you that I thought you should have a career in broadcasting, Paul, because I think you're a very attractive man. You know, platonically speaking, I think you're a very attractive man. So we're going to start with that. We're going.
Do you want me to leave you to it? Do you want me to just fuck off and leave you to it?
Paul, Stuart, you could just go away for a second. But yeah, no. Are you in the gym at the moment?
Well, I'm 8 weeks out for the camp. I think it's 8 weeks this week. So we're in full swing. We're in full weight cut mode. We're in dieting mode. All this kind of stuff. Not long back for Vegas as well, so I have to blow the cobwebs off for that. Vegas is one of these places where it's all fun and games when you're there, but then when you come home and have to actually do the work again, do the hard stuff like the runs, the lifting of weights, it's horrible going to Vegas. I'm like, why did I do that? It takes like 8 days or something for my body to recover for the actual travel. So it's like one of these things where I'm like, it's all good at the time and it's big and clever at the time, but it's really not.
No. Well, I mean, you've just mentioned weight cuts and stuff. And for anyone that isn't aware, the big news and one of the big reasons that we wanted to reach out and chat to you today was you're doing a really big thing by you're cutting down to middleweight for your next fight. Can you just talk us through what the thought process was and is, and why did you think I'm going to try middleweight?
I think the main thing, we always kind of thought, there's an opportunity at middleweight for us with regards to, we're not the biggest of light heavyweights. I walk about 100 kg, I cut to 93 kg, so it's not a huge cut. When you look at guys like Johnny Walker in my last fight, who I think was 114 on fight day, I could be wrong, maybe 110. Let's say it was 110 on fight day after making 93 kilograms. Now that's huge in comparison to what I went up to. I went up to like 97 for fight day. So if you look at the difference of how much weight he's actually put on through water manipulation, through diet control, all this kind of stuff, he was huge. And you could see that as we stood in front of each other. He looked like a whole different weight class. It's something I've never ever done, is done massive cuts. But I think when I'm in the top 10, in the top 15, all these guys are doing big cuts. And it's the weight classes are there for a reason. The weight classes are there because the bigger guys are going to have the advantage. So by me moving down, like Pereira he walks about like round about my weight. In the past, it's cut down to the 85 kg mark. So we've had this conversation with management, with my coach, James, and we decided that it might be worth, let's see if we can do it. So we flew out to Vegas, done all the testing, done all the power output tests as a middleweight. We sat down with the guys there at the UFC PI and they said, listen, Paul, you are a very small light heavyweight. I don't carry a lot of muscle. If you look at me, I look like a swimmer. I'm really, really thin. Running 100 meters, I'm the guy. Lifting any sort of weights, I'm not really that great. So we looked at this middleweight and got up against all the middleweights.
I can understand that, Paul. Like lifting the weights, it's hard for me to lift the weight. I don't know if you can
Listen,
see
me and you're built the exact same way. Like literally, it's looking in a mirror, man. But it's like in having the like, oh, I could make middleweight. Me saying that is different from having the actual information in front of you on sheets of paper that say, you know what, your muscle mass is going to be huge, your fat content is going to be very, very low. So the only way to do it was to do a trial cut. We did a trial cut in the house and it went swimmingly. After we did the trial cut, I did the official weigh-ins and myself, run through it all myself with my nutritionist. And then we went in and done some sparring rounds in the gym. And going from being 93 kilograms, bulking up to 97 as a light heavyweight, we went from being 85 kilograms, bouncing all the way back up to 99 kilograms through water manipulation. So we were huge, we were massive, I could feel it in myself. So we hit up the UFC, and the UFC were like, really excited for this. So not only is it it's kind of rejuvenated my career a little bit by moving down to 85. I'm hopefully going to be an absolute phenom at that weight. If you look at the guys who are in the division, right, we've got some heavy hitters. like the Italian stallion, Vittori. You know, he hits hard. When you look at Israel Adesanya, I don't think any of them have got that fear of jiu-jitsu that I have. You know, when you go up against me, if you take me down, there's a good chance you're getting subbed. If you want to go into that world, there's a good chance. And the UFC decided that it would give me a grappler as my first fight, which is brilliant. So I'm going up against a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt as an 85er in UFC London. So I'm excited to see what this new adventure is. But also, the 205's not done. The light heavyweight division's not done. I've still got a victory over the champion, and I've still got a victory over the number 2 in Magomedov Ankalaev. So these guys are the top of the division, and I'm the only person to beat them.
I mean, there's already a lot to unpack there, Paul. You've sort of answered 3 of my questions in one thing, but I want to get a bit more kind of detail from some of it, and a lot of it, I suppose, is regarding the process of these kind of let's call it like a mock. Well, it's not a mock weight cut. You did a weight cut, didn't you? But
I did it.
So how does that all work? Are you doing that at the PI, or are you doing it kind of separately to the UFC?
So the UFC PI are like they're an amazing thing to have at my disposal, but they're way over in the States. So unless I'm an American fighter fighting out of Vegas or fighting very close to that, it's very, very hard to do a weight cut there. So it's all remote accessing. So I would send them an email. They would then get back to me. We'd maybe have some dialogue over WhatsApp, whatever the social media we choose to use. But it's still that distance. There's still a good bit of time between us. So I've got a nutrition team here. So I've got a nutritionist and I've got a strength and conditioning guy. So we worked it with us in our little local team with regards to my nutritionist. He's from Dundee, which is like an hour away from me. My nutritionist stays down in Sheffield, so it's much easier to get hold of him and it's much more sociable hours as opposed to me messaging just now and it taking like 6 hours for them to get back to me with the time difference. Obviously, if they're awake and it's very late, then they're not going to get back to me. But we did it in my house. I've got a sauna. I've got like all the proper equipment to run it. And it was just a case of we do a heavy water load, so increase as much water as we possibly can. So I would be drinking something like 10 litres of water a day for the first 3 days and then reduce all that water. So you trick your body into thinking it's got excess water, so it constantly sweats. I also reduce salt in my diet, which stops the body from retaining water. There's other stuff like dandelion root that increases the amount of urine you do. You would take like a laxative tea that just slowly moves your bowels a little bit more. Other things is like reduction of carbohydrates. So we bring our carbohydrates right the way down, kind of focus on a lot more fats and protein. And then from that, the body just wants to like lose all this weight. I cut 10 kg in a week. And that was at the extreme end, because what I wanted to do was I'm going to diet down further. So it's not going to be a 10 kilogram water cut. It's going to be more than likely an 8 kg, 7 kg water cut, which is a lot more safer than the 10 kg. But when we were doing it in the house, I was like, right, we're safe in this environment. I've not got a fight to worry about. Let's do it at the point where we know that it's going to be touch and go. I would rather have done it in the worst case scenario rather than the best case scenario, because the best case scenario was fight time. So we done it for like a cut gone wrong, let's say that. We started our weight a little bit higher. We cut a lot more water weight. And I think it worked out a lot. Like stepping on these scales, I felt horrible. I'm not going to be like, I felt amazing and it was great. Stepping on these scales, I knew I had cut weight. But when the rehydration process kicked back in, everything just felt amazing. So it's guys like, I use the Wilson boxing guys who have got like all their stuff is done through academic journals. It's academic. They're both scientists, so all the information they've got is phenomenal. And the same with my strength and conditioning coach, Adam. He's working with the guys at the PI. He's working with some of the best conditioning coaches out there in the US, and he's just adding little bits of 1% to my game. And I think this is a huge, like, we always try and every single camp get a little bit better, make sure you're not slipping. Because at that point, when you're not hitting all these numbers of being if your speed's reducing, your power's reducing, your recovery time's reducing, that's at the time where you're thinking about let's hang up these gloves. This is getting like we're over the hill. The way all my numbers are sitting in these 1%, they're huge by working with somebody that knows what they're doing. When I first joined the UFC, going back like 7-8 years ago, I was playing at it. I had no idea of nutrition. I had no idea of conditioning. The coach I had at the time was substandard. And over the last year, right, I've had 2 losses in my record, but I'm still fighting guys in the top 10. Over the last year and a half, I have leveled up massively in body composition, stats with regards to testing. So I think I'm just kind of coming into my own at the moment.
Yeah. Stu, I want to let you ask a question. I just want to paint the picture for everyone, because you keep using kilograms, and I know fighters from Europe do. And I haven't got a clue with kilograms. So I've looked it up on my phone just now. You're talking about cutting 10 kilograms, or that's the dangerous one. You're saying you're going to try and cut 8, but people have cut 10 kilograms, or you thought potentially you would be cutting 10 kilograms of, I'm assuming, water weight?
Yes. So you don't want to cut muscle.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know about kilograms, which I don't, just to paint the picture, that's 22 pounds, which is over 1.5 stone.
Yep.
That I just wanted to paint that picture just for anyone that doesn't know, just because people talking kilograms all the time, and I'm like, it kind of doesn't land as heavily or as realistically. But quickly tell me the time period that water cut is done in. Just the water cut.
So just the water cut. I've got on my data there, but from the Monday, we started the water load the Monday, and I was 96 kilograms. And we did by the time we diet and manipulated calories, fat content, all this kind of stuff. By the time we hit Friday, we were looking at cutting 6 kilograms of just pure water weight. So through sweating. So we would jump on the treadmill. So the first thing we do is do a long distance run. So you would do we call it a tempo run that will burn all the glycogen in your muscles. Once the glycogen's burned, then we'll go into the sauna and we'll try and reduce our body through water. And that's like just straight up sweating. We'll be in there. It's like in between 100 to 110 degrees. Body just keeps pouring out water. Then we'll do a wrap for 45 minutes. And I cut 3 kg, woke up the next morning, did the same sort of thing where I jump in rather than using a more aggressive cut with regards to the sauna, because it's super hot and it does take a fair bit off you in the chest. We do it in a bath, so it's a little bit more passive as opposed to the sauna that sucks the water out of you. And then the same again, we jump in the bath for 20 minutes, jump in a wrap for 20 minutes, and then back in the sauna, back in the bath, and that was 3 kg again. So as a week, we cut. It's crazy how fighters do it, but the UFC are happy with you cutting in between 10% of your body weight. So that would be 10 kilograms for me. That's at the extreme end. And what kind of functions happen is the throat starts to, because of not having any moisture in, so the voice starts to change as your throat starts to relax through the muscles through your voice starts to go different. Everybody will have seen the image of Conor McGregor talking to Ariel Helwani, and he sounds a bit slower. So cognitive function starts to slow right down.
Well, it's what Bisping realised with Max Holloway one time, wasn't it? He kind of not called him out, but he made it apparent during an interview with Max Holloway, and it got people very worried about Max fighting. This is a couple of years ago now, I think, and it became a bit of a kind of a thing, didn't it, in the MMA world about, oh God, is Max okay? Because this seemed like a really terrible cut for him.
I think it's one of these things that's going to be in the sport. I don't think it's ever going to go away. As long as there's an advantage to you cutting weight, and there's a huge advantage, then people are going to do it. So it's always going to be there. So the best thing that the PI done was, rather than saying we're going to stop people from doing these massive weight cuts, what they do now is we're going to support you. We know 10% of your body is safe, and we can rehydrate you. And then it comes to fight time, you're going to be in peak physical condition. So we were only cutting I think we were cutting maybe 5% of your body on fight week. I'm not the biggest, as I said. I'm tall, but I'm not the biggest. When you compare me to guys like Johnny Walker, when you compare me to I'm trying to think of other quite big, Glover Teixeira, it's very, very wide. Jan Blachowicz, very, very thick. When you see me standing
Yes.
next to these guys, I look very thin. I'm tall, but I've not got a lot of muscle mass. And I've always kind of been the underdog in this division. I've always been like the boogeyman, and it's just been the submissions. I don't hit hard. I can punch all day, and I can grapple all day, and that's where I fit into this division. I'm the grappling guy. I'm the guy that can go take you down and sub you.
But with the test, I just want to sort of ask you, once you've kind of got to the weight and then you've rehydrated during this test point, then how does it work? Do you spar 5 rounds, 5-minute rounds? Like what's the process to see what you're capable of, you know, in regards to once you've got to that point where you want to be? What can you do when you get in the octagon? Like, what's the sort of process then?
So what we do is we are looking at the heart rate. So the minute the heart rate spikes into these 160, 170, 180 ranges, then we know there's a lot of pressure on the heart. So once I made the weight, rehydrated, then it was a case of waiting at 24 hours, and we run it like a proper show. Put on walkout music. The gym was closed. It was a Saturday night. We all walked. The guys were there, coaches were there. I walked out to music. I had a few different sparring partners. And what we like to do is we like to do like a fight gone wrong, we call it. So you're getting a fresh man every single time, because it's fine if you're fighting somebody you know you can beat. But what we like to do is we like to fresh man you, so you'll get 5 minutes of a fresh guy. So you've got to fight him for 5 minutes, another guy comes in, another 5 minutes, and we've done 5 fives. And then we sort of assessed it from there, because at this point we still weren't sure how this is going to go. Right, weight cut went well, rehydration went well, and it was all leaning on this. Can you perform? There's not much point in making the weight if you can't actually perform, because that's what this sport comes down to. It's come down to performance. So then that was the whole thing. Can you go in and do 5 fives with a fresh guy? And what we did was we can do it, and we can do it with some exciting outcomes. The gym I'm at now at higher level in Bathgate, I'm surrounded by some of the most talented young individuals in the country. They're pushing themselves to the next level. One of the things I said when I first started 11 years ago, I call it the Wild West days, where we were training like twice a day if we were lucky. These kids live in the gym, they eat, they breathe, everything they do is about improving. When you look at what I am as a fighter, you're like, Paul Craig, great grappler. I'm a grappler in this division of MMA. Nowadays, the kids in the gym, when I call them kids, they're men, they're MMA fighters. They're not just grapplers, they're not just boxers, they've not got these like Chuck Liddell where he was a striker. This guy's a wrestler, this guy, you need to watch this. Now it's like, no, they're going to mess you up no matter what it is, be it boxing, grappling, it doesn't matter. So the new wave of these guys in the gym pushed me and helped me prepare for this fight and helped me prepare for that weight cut, which went amazing. And then that's why we could go to the UFC and say to them, listen, we can fight middleweight, we can also fight light heavyweight, middleweight, because it's all about opportunities. And the light heavyweight at the moment, unless I'm fighting backwards and out the top 15, then I'm not going to get any fights. If you look who I've fought and who I've beat in the top 10, with regards to I've fought Jimmy Crute, I've fought the champion in Jamal Hill, I've fought Ankalaev, I've fought Ozdemir, I've fought Johnny Walker. I think I've fought like 5 guys in the top 10 and everybody else is just outside it. So I'm like, there needs to be opportunities, and sometimes you need to make them yourself, or you're going to have to go back and fight the fighters you've already fought.
I just want to say something as well. You just mentioned the Scottish MMA scene that you're seeing coming through at the moment. Like, you should take credit as well. Like people like you and Stevie and Jojo. It's it's what you've put into the sport over the last sort of 10 years. It's coming through now, and it's having an effect, and it's bringing next. You're inspiring these fighters through. I think you should definitely take some credit for that, Paul.
I know it's like there's a wave now of guys coming out. We've obviously just signed Chris Duncan, who got the victory in London at the start of the year, at the start of the UFC London at the start of the year. So we've got him coming through, but there's other fighters there who aren't really getting the opportunity because it's hard. There's not a lot of shows in the UK. There's not a lot of shows in Scotland, and we're now just kind of getting these guys the opportunities that they deserve on places like Cage Warriors, BAMA, and they're holding their own. We just need to be banging a bigger drum for ourselves, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's a lot of UK fighters, a lot of them are English and a lot of them are Irish. There's not a lot getting pushed in the world of Scotland. So I train with a young guy called Sean Clancy. He's just turned 20. He's an absolute phenom in the gym. I reckon you could take him into MMA, into any MMA gym in the world, and he'll be able to hold his own. He's so good. So he's one of the kids to look out for. But there's so many guys like that in all the gyms in Scotland, and they don't get any recognition unless somebody's blowing their trumpet. Yeah. But we're right at the front of the wave at the moment with regards to these new guys just breaking through. And it shows like Dana White's Contender Series, because guys are getting on the show with like 5 wins.
Yeah.
All you need to do is have a couple of wins, get an opportunity to go out to America, and you've got an opportunity to showcase your talent in front of the world. And if you put on a performance, you're getting a contract. And if you don't put on a performance, there's also the next time and the time after that. There's great opportunities in this. Like you look at Cage Warriors, the guys that come through Cage Warriors. There's guys coming through Bellator now as well. There used to always be that kind of thing where it was Bellator and UFC. Now you can jump from one to the other, and it's not seen as a negative move. But
yeah, I'm
a dying breed of the world of MMA. I'm old. I'm 35. I've got grey hairs on my balls, man. It's
we're
coming
all
in,
getting
man.
there, mate. We're all there.
I know.
Yeah, it's still there. At least your beard is darker than our beards. For anyone watching this on YouTube, you're all right.
It starts in here, doesn't it? Starts in here.
Yeah.
I'm getting it, and it's here. But salt and pepper.
This is my son. I've got a picture of me with my son when he was just born. It's all jet black. A few years later, this is him. This is all him here.
It's just stress, isn't it?
Boys, seriously, pipe down. I am winning the grey beard battle. Hands down, man.
Just for me. Should get a sponsorship there.
Well, we should do, shouldn't we? But look, Paul, let's talk about your opponent. I think it's July 22nd is UFC coming back to London. That's when you're making your middleweight debut. And I have to say, when I first heard that you were making the move to middleweight, in my head, I was thinking from my kind of a layman armchair coach position that I was like, oh, Craig at middleweight, that'd be great. Do you know, I'd love to see him fight. I'd love to see him fight like a Sean Strickland or someone who's going to come forward. He's not necessarily got like knockout power or anything like that, but he's going to come forward. Paul will be able to use his size to just get hold of him, drag him to the floor, and then that's all she wrote. That's what I was thinking is the great fight for Paul Craig. But what you've got to done is you've picked the guy that's like the best jiu-jitsu guy in the division. He's the guy that broke Jacare's arm a while ago, stuff like that. So I was like, oh God, I was wondering to myself, is there anything in the Muniz decision where you're going, oh, I get to prove that I'm the best grappler in that new division, and that will strike fear in the rest of the opponents? Like, what was the process with Andre Muniz?
So we looked at, when the UFC can be quite brutal, because the name that I liked was Sean Strickland. I think it's a great fight for me. Tough guy, works really hard, but I think just my jiu-jitsu. When the UFC offered me a few names, he was the guy that was highest ranked. And we were like, well, we're moving from light heavyweight because we don't want to fight outside the top 15. Why would we do that? Why would we go to a new division and fight outside the top 15? He was number 15, and we were like, right, that's the guy we're taking. And I think our victory over him cements me in that top 15, like in the middleweights. And then everybody starts to worry. As you said, he did break Jacare's arm. He broke an old Jacare's arm. You know, Jacare's a tough guy. We've seen him in the jiu-jitsu comp with his broken arm and goes on to get the victory. Is he going to do it to a young, hungry Paul Craig? I can't see it. My jiu-jitsu is slick. That armbar he did is incredible. He's done it twice. I think he got somebody else with it and might have broke their arm as well. Like, he gets the back transition, so he makes you make a mistake where he wants you to try and get back up. He wants you to get back up so that he can jump on your back, and then he slides off the back and then looks for that shotgun armbar. Slick submission. But what happens if the guy doesn't want to stand up and he doesn't worry about giving you his back? Like, I've got very good jiu-jitsu. For a long time, I always doubted my abilities as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. But then if I look at what I've done in the world of jiu-jitsu and what I've done in the world of MMA, like, it's what I do speaks volumes. taking Jamal Hill down, pulling guard on these guys who are very, very good. Like, I think you're going to get a better grappler in the light heavyweight division than Krylov. Like, I don't think anybody can touch his grappling. He's one of the best in that division. If you look at what Jamal Hill did grappling-wise to Glover Teixeira, who is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt with like credentials as long as my cock.
Yeah,
he's the guy, and Jamal Hill made him look like an average guy. Right, it's an older Glover, but if this is what I'm doing to these guys, what am I going to do to a guy that I'm an extra 20 kilograms heavier than? That's the thing. He's not going to be able to bully me the way he has bullied other guys. He fought. Who was it? He fought? He fought somebody and he put him on his back, and he had no jiu-jitsu.
Are you talking about? I was going to say that most recently he lost, didn't he, to Brendan Allen? I was going to say, did you take anything from that fight and go,
yes,
I know how to deal with
Brendan Allen. Yep.
Yeah.
He looks like he likes being the hammer. Who doesn't like being the hammer? Nobody wants to be the nail. Yeah. Whereas I'm the guy that likes being the nail. So you think you're getting the victory over me, then that's when I do my best work. I like coming from, like, if you look at my first fight in London with regards to getting beat up off Ankalaev and coming back, you look at my last time in London with regards to Krylov, who was absolutely mashing me into canvas, and I still get the victory. You look at Volk in London as well. Like, I'm dangerous. Nobody wants to go there, and I think if he takes me to the ground, I'm comfortable. But even if he wants to stand, I think that's where the you're going to see a biggest improvement in this new version of Paul at middleweight. I think the striking through what you're going to see is going to be great. Fighting a southpaw grappler in London is going to be able to allow me to show how good my striking is. I've shown little glimpses of it. If you look at the last time I fought in London with Ozdemir, and people are like, why did you go to the ground? And it's like, it's confidence in my striking. When you're going up against a heavy hitter who's a striker, you're kind of going to resort back to what you know you can do. But there was glimmers of hope there. If you see me fighting Jimmy Crute, there was glimmers of hope there. Anytime I get the chance to showcase my stand-up, people are like, that guy can actually strike. I genuinely can strike. It's just I find it much easier to grapple with folk.
Yeah. I mean, what do you make of the middleweight division at the moment? Because to me, it seems like with the obviously outside of the first loss to Pereira, which he's avenged, Adesanya has put himself in this position where there's not really many contenders. I feel like the UFC matchmaking hasn't been great with the Dricus du Plessis versus Robert Whittaker fight, because it's like, well, if Robert Whittaker wins, are we really going to do Whittaker Adesanya 3? I believe they're doing a card in Australia in a few months' time, so he's going to need an opponent for that, maybe September or something like that. So I look at that middleweight division, and if the Whittaker DDP fight kind of genuinely does happen, then, and Whittaker wins, if they're not looking forward to doing Whittaker Adesanya 3, there's middleweights in there that, you know, you could be 2 wins away from a title shot in that division, because Adesanya has cleared it out. Vettori twice, Whittaker twice, Cannonier, all these people. Do you look at that, and was that another motivation for you to go down to middleweight to go, do you know what? I'm only a couple away.
That is, we still believe we're a couple away in the light heavyweight, but the same again, we're a couple away in this division as well. These 2 divisions, light heavyweight and middleweight, they're a bit messed up at the moment with regards to light heavyweight still trying to find out who's the guy, and there are people moving. There's a lot of people off. We've not seen not Krylov. We've not seen Rakic for a while.
Yeah.
We've not seen Prohaska, who gave up his belt. So there's a bit of movement still to be happening in there. There's guys still jostling. But in middleweight, there's opportunities, and as you say, it's 2 fights. I get a victory over him, and I believe I'm right in the top 10. I genuinely believe that. And then you put me up against another guy who's not got grappling in there, like Sean Strickland, like Cannonier, like any of these guys in front of me, Marvin Vettori, who, same again, hits hard. I've said it before, hits hard, but grappling-wise, he's not in the same calibre as me. And as you're saying, when you look at who has got victories over Adesanya, when he moved up to light heavyweight and we fought against Blachowicz, if Blachowicz had taken him down the first round, that fight would have been over a lot sooner. And I believe that my jiu-jitsu is far superior than Blachowicz in the regards to submission attempts, looking to finish the fight. Right, Adesanya is an amazing striker, and Bobby Knuckles would be the champion if Adesanya wasn't there. Yeah. He's probably the worst guy that, for me personally, fighting wise, he's the worst guy because he's a guy who I watched in the Ultimate Fighter Smashes, Robert Whittaker, and I thought, I like this guy. He's a really nice guy. So for me, he's the worst guy I'd want to fight against.
Yeah.
Hits hard, great wrestler, good all-round guy. He's a guy I don't want to share the octagon with just because he's such a nice guy. But everybody else, they're all fair game. I believe that I can make waves in both of these divisions at the moment.
Absolutely.
Shall we talk favourite fighters, Blake?
Yeah,
let's go for it.
If you've got time,
have you got yourself?
Ask you. Most certainly.
Wonderful. Well, so, basically, Paul, we're going to ask you if you can just give us your 5 favourite fighters, and we'll obviously we'll have a chat about sort of one as we go through. But yeah, are they in any order? Are they from like 5 to number 1 being your favourite, or are they just 5 being really great?
It's difficult. I think the way I look at it is it's my Mount Rushmore. You can't just have one of them, can you? So my Mount Rushmore probably has to be GSP. Yeah. So we're going to go GSP. We're going to go John Jones. We're going to go Conor McGregor. We're going to go. I always like Ronda Rousey for what she's done for women's MMA, and the last guy probably has to be Jamal Hill. That's my Rushmore of fighters.
Fantastic.
And the name that really stands out from that, I mean, there's a couple that stand out to me, but the name that really stands out as a surprising pick to me is Jamal Hill. I mean, we've had Jamal on. I think he's great, top fighter. But what is it about him that makes him one of your favourites?
I think he's your every American guy, and he's the guy that gives hope. Like, he's not, when you look at him in comparison to GSP has the look, he's very shredded, the way he trains, the way everything's methodical. He's so different from what Jamal Hill is. Jamal Hill's this funny guy who sells himself as a showman, who sells himself as this funny guy. And when it comes to a fight, I've thought, like, right, he's going to get beat off. What's his name? Glover. Glover should beat him in the grappling exchanges. We've seen Glover versus Prohaska, one of the best fights we've ever seen with regards to grappling, back and forward striking, and then Jamal Hill makes him look like an average fighter. And you're like, well, I didn't see that coming. And then I believe Jamal Hill has this touch of death. Do you remember the Simpsons episode where it's like the touch of death and everybody's scared of Bart's, Lisa's scared of Bart? Jamal Hill has that. So when he touches people like Johnny Walker, he flatlined Johnny Walker with a mishit. Like, wasn't a full connection, it was just a clip. And Johnny Walker went full Mexican wave. We've seen him against OSP as well. Same again, he just drops people. Yeah. So for me, he's like this new. Back in the day when we guys like Chuck Liddell, who were starching folk, who had this power, Mark Hunt, who was starching folk with this power. He's this new wave of guys that are touching people because he's not flinging from back here, what these guys were doing. He's just bump and people are just sinking. And he doesn't look like he hits hard. So that's why he's in it for me. He's the full package with regards to entertainment. And he's just a good guy. And having experiences with him in the octagon as well as having experiences with him as an actual friend, that's why he's there. And I think he's going to absolutely mash Prohaska. That's my honest opinion. And I think anybody else that goes up against him, he's going to mash them.
Going back to GSP, who you shouted out first, Paul, was he one of the fighters that was a big inspiration as you was coming through in martial arts?
I only started watching MMA about 11 years ago. So when everybody talks about, like, when they speak about like Randy Couture, they speak about these guys away back then, like when it first kicked off, like I had no idea who they were. It's because I caught, like, the guys when I started watching who were on a bit of a tear were GSP. We had Anderson Silva, who was a bit of a beast. We had Jose Aldo. All these kind of guys were like that new wave of MMA guys. Gone for just throwing and having the he's a striker, he's a grappler. We had GSP, who was going to wrestling gyms and learning basic wrestling. He was going to striking and learning basic striking. He had all these martial arts individually and then made them one. And then his actual record speaks for itself. Him going up against fighters, like, he shouldn't be the guy who was beating everybody, but he was, and he was doing it very comfortably, and he was doing it in style as well. He's a good role model for guys getting into MMA, and for me, he's a GOAT. He is the guy. He's not got any asterisks next to his name where he was like, oh, he's a cheater. No, doesn't have any of that. He was the guy. Whereas when you look at John Jones, light heavyweight, absolutely cleaned everybody out as a young guy, cleaning out some of the old dogs in the light heavyweight, and then him moving up to heavyweight to beat Cyril Gain, and the way he did gives him still GOAT status. But there's also that thing that goes along with being a fighter, you're a role model as well. Like, GSP's the role model. John Jones is not the role model, and in their sport, you kind of need to be both of these kind of things, don't you? So that's why. But GSP skill wise, yes, GS sorry, I spat myself there.
I was going to let you get away with it. I saw it, and I was like, I'm not going to say anything. Everyone's going to rewind it now. Oh, there it is.
So, but Jones skill wise, I think it's unquestionable.
Yeah.
Like, when you look at like the asterisks next to his name, he was suspended through USADA. He was suspended with regards to like drugs, running over a woman, all this kind of stuff that goes around with John Jones' name. But take all that aside and you put him in the octagon, he's one of the best.
Well, yeah, I think it's hard to argue against. It's hard to argue against Jones being possibly the greatest of all time. I mean, you've got your GSP. I think Demetrius Johnson is very underrated when it comes to these types of discussions, but I think he's there. But John Jones, it's hard for me. As a fighter, as you say, he's got to be in the conversation, and it's very possible that he's 1 or 2 wins at heavyweight away from being unquestionably the greatest fighter to ever step in the cage. But it's really hard to not have that little asterisk of like the drug stuff, but also the personal stuff, like the whole thing in the hotel in Vegas when he picked up the Hall of Fame award, and there was the situation with his fiance, and it's all in the police report, and people can go and look that up. It's as a human being, I suppose maybe a diplomatic way of saying it is he's very troubled. He's got his demons, and he's made a lot of mistakes. So yeah, it's hard to sometimes pull those things apart and compartmentalize. But as you say, as a fighter, it's getting even harder to argue against him being the greatest.
I know. Like, as I said, skill wise, he's the guy. We're not going to see another fighter like him who's going to do 2 weight divisions, who's going to beat Cormier the way he beat Cormier. I beat Cormier as well. And having such a long layoff and doing what he wants and being that guy, and what are you going to do? But then in the same flip side, we've now got Conor McGregor, who went from being one of the greatest MMA practitioners, 2-weight champs, to now being a kind of sad, meme where you send friends, they're like, oh, did you see what Conor McGregor does? Did you see what Conor McGregor was up to the weekend? And it's kind of every time that guy goes out in public, it kind of wastes his legacy. We seen him at the Grand Prix. Was it the Grand Prix? Was it
something like that? Yeah, Monaco or whatever was it?
It's heartbreaking, because the reason I put him in my Hall of Fame, skill wise, absolutely tremendous. But for me, he gets the pass for being an entertainer. Conor McGregor helped UK MMA beyond no belief. You had guys like John Jones, GSP, representing in America, and the sport wasn't big. The minute you had somebody like Conor McGregor, you got a full star there. You got a guy that could win fights and a guy that could sell tickets. And for him doing what he was doing in the UFC made the sport much bigger, and then it made my job much more easier, because then people understood what MMA was, people knew what UFC was, and then going through that, you look at, he made like the Diaz brothers stars because they fought, and people thought like Nate Diaz was was something special. And then they go away and look at other people's fight, look at other fighters, look at who's local fighting, and then it builds the brand and it builds the sport in the UK. That's why he makes my Hall of Fame, just for what he done for UK MMA. And I don't think there's been anybody else. We had Michael Bisping, and he'd been in the sport for years. And I love Michael Bisping. Love talking to him, love all the stuff that goes along with Michael, love his charm. He was the first champion for the UK, but he didn't have that star power that McGregor did. He didn't have that wait up to 3 o'clock in the morning to see this guy. And if you look at other fighters in the UK who we've got coming through, like Tom Aspinall, who still has that star power, still no McGregor star power, is it? Yeah. McGregor decides who he wants to fight, when he wants to fight, how this fight's going to go, if he's a boxing fight, if it's cage. Like, nobody else has done that. That's why he makes it, because he makes the sport in the UK a better sport.
So on that, it's a great time to ask, which we've been asking lots of guests recently. Conor versus Chandler. Do you think it'll happen? Because there's so much, like, apparently he's still not testing yet, and so that's they're going to put it 6 months away. I think the season of the Ultimate Fighter, that starts very soon, doesn't it? And normally you get the fights after that. Do you think that fight will happen? And if it does, how do you see it going?
I don't think it'll go. I think it'll go ahead. I think seeing you've got that much money and that much publicity around about you, you've not got the hunger and the drive. The reason Conor was so good at what he'd done was because he was doing the hard work in the gym without the cameras being there. He was getting up, doing the heavy runs, lifting the weights, grinding. And when you watch that first documentary of The Notorious, you were like, this guy's hungry. This guy's something special. And you wanted him to win because he was living on benefits. He never had any money. His partner had like basically supported him to live his dream. And you're like, I like this guy. This is a really, really nice guy. Whereas you look at this guy now, the guy's made it. The guy jumps about in yachts. He's not the man of the people anymore. He's the 1%, isn't he? He makes money through anything he touches. You know, like if he was selling the ugliest hat in the world, people would still wear it.
Yeah.
And then that's why I don't think he'll fight, because he doesn't need to fight. We fight for glory. That guy's already got glory. If you don't fight for glory, you fight for money. That guy's already got money. So he's not fueled by any of this kind of stuff. If the fight did go ahead, I just think Chandler's just too much to handle. You look at, he's got heavy hands. He's in the gym training while McGregor's out partying in a yacht and Speedo's lifting weights. Like this, Chandler's in the gym, absolutely busting his ass in there, where you've got a guy like McGregor who's drinking bottles of whiskey, doing other notorious things in the world of him. Azario Arwani interview where he's fueled by other things than alcohol. So like I can't see him coming back. I can't see him being the guy that we want him to be. I know there's going to be a lot of UK fans that want him to come back and prove that he can do it, but I just can't see it happening, and I can't see him getting the victory if it does go ahead. Chandler's too much to handle, too much a good wrestler, heavy mitts, and get cardios for day, and he's in the top 10 for a reason, or then he's in the top 5 for a reason.
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of what you said there. And I mean, lastly, you picked Ronda Rousey as a top 5 fighter, which I think is a great pick. It's really interesting that you could have gone with Amanda Nunes, which again people would say is the female GOAT. She's beat like pretty much all the previous like champions in that bantamweight division and stuff. 2-weight champion as well, although featherweight's a bit of a weird one. But you've gone with Ronda, and I think possibly for similar reasons that you went with Conor. I just remember that spell that she had when she had something like 4 title defenses, and cumulatively they were about 2.5 minutes. And you're like,
she wasn't getting touched. She was just grabbing people, hitting them with a throw, taking them to the ground and beating them up. I'm a dad of, at this point, I was a dad of a young girl who didn't have a female role model. Well, she did. She had her mum. But what I'm meaning is, in the world of MMA, there wasn't a lot of... My daughter used to love Joanne Calderwood. And I mean, she probably, if I asked her, like she's 16 now, my daughter, if I asked her, like, oh, do you remember Joanne Calderwood? I remember she used to have this UFC glove that Joanne signed for her at some event. I took her to the warm, they used to do like pad sessions before fights, before the shows. I took her to watch that. But to have a female who carried herself well, who was a champion, like that was my daughter's guy. My daughter loved Ronda Rousey. She had a wee Ronda Rousey t-shirt, the UFC one that said Ronda down the side. So that's why she makes it in, because I've got memories of watching her with my daughter as a fan, and there was nobody else doing that at the time. And for what it did for women's MMA, you know, it pushed it, because before Ronda Rousey, Dana White had no interest in putting these fights on. Didn't want to see women's MMA in the UFC, and then going for
he openly dismissed it, didn't he?
Yep, he did. And then going for that to now having an actual card where a female was headlining, like that was brilliant, and it showed my daughter, who still trains kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, still does all this kind of stuff. Do I want my daughter to be a fighter? No, but there was a role model there for her to look up to and be like, that's who I want to be. So that's why she makes it.
It took me back, like when you was just seeing her absolutely just walk through opponents. It was like when you was watching Tyson in the late 80s, where he was just, no one gave any opponent a chance. And I think I've said to you before, Blake, that the biggest shock in MMA for me was when Holly beat Ronda, because taking nothing away from Holly, it was like, hang on, that was not meant to happen. Like, Ronda walks through everyone, and it blew my mind that this fight that seemed completely unbeatable was beaten, and then that was pretty much it after that, wasn't it? Like, and then obviously Nunes, but I think at that point she just cemented, she'd done her work for women in MMA. Yep. It was an established.
The way I look at it is, like a bottle. It was like a bottle. Ronda Rousey was the cork, and see, once that bottle was opened, there was all these female fighters come through, like Amanda Nunes. We had obviously the women coming through and the Ultimate Fighter as well, but there was just this next wave of female fighters, and the divisions, like some of the most competitive divisions in the UFC. And as I say, it just brings on that next level. When you look at I've shared the card with her. Her name is, she was a soccer mum. We were in Brazil, and she got beat as well, but she was like a soccer mum, went to a kickboxing class, and then just became an MMA fighter because she went to a kickboxing class, because she took her son or daughter went into this gym, there was kickboxing going on, and then happened to be in the mix fighting for titles and that kind of stuff, just because what was her name? It was Long. Doesn't matter. But anyway, it's like this new wave of, it just opens up the door for females to be like, right, I want to be an MMA fighter. Because as we said, for a long time it was just men. You just had men being MMA fighters, no women, no inspiration there for young females who were in the world of starting karate or maybe starting jiu-jitsu. Now there's a path. Now you can have a world champion. Now you can be a world champion in your world of mixed martial arts. So that's why she makes it. And they're all there for a reason. Like, there's times where that top five will change. Like Damian Maia, for what he's done for jiu-jitsu wise in the world of MMA.
Yeah,
you got to respect that. And he's interchangeable. There's times where I'm like, nah, Conor McGregor's not making it. He's out, and Damian Maia comes in, and you look at like the Gracies, what they did for the sport. Like, there's all these kind of things that top five, much like a film top five, that it changes when you start thinking about people's background and what they did for the sport. Because that's, for me, that's what a legacy is. You can be the best fighter in the world, but you don't need to be the best fighter in the world to make my Rushmore in the world of MMA. It's an entertainment sport, and that's how people make it. Entertaining. Are they entertaining? Are they an inspiration? It's the next wave, isn't it?
So, speaking of entertainment, you got a podcast, right?
I have. It's leathered. It's a bit wild. I'm going to be honest. I do it with my teammate Chris Bungard, who fights for Cage Warriors, and I do it with my friend Ross Cooper. And it's a bit wild. If you like funny stories that you can't listen to in front of your kids, really podcast for you. It's like you'll be listening to some of these stories and you'll be like, and there's stories we can't actually tell on the podcast because they're just wild. They're wild. But
what's
I enjoy it.
Podcast.
It's called Leathered.
Leathered. Right,
Leathered.
We'll go and check that one out.
In Scotland, leathered means you get battered, or leathered means you get pissed, you get drunk. So it's got like a few meanings, and we've all been leathered. Like all the guys in the podcast have been leathered once or twice, be it through booze or be it through getting a fight. So the thing that I think makes this podcast work is the fact that we enjoy doing it. So it's just three guys, we jump in, we don't rehearse anything. We are an MMA podcast, but we don't talk about MMA. And we just kind of talk, and then we're like, oh, remember that time we were in Vegas and we ended up partying with Martin Compton? Aye, like, how did that happen? And then you're like, it's these kind of funny stories, and then we get fans to send in their funny stories as well. And some of the stories that people got up to are absolutely wild. And none of them are PC. Not one story that we have told on that is PC. We're not getting a TV show anytime soon. It's just too dark.
Well, great to hear, man. Paul, we've taken up more of your time than I thought we would. We really appreciate you giving us all this time, mate. And just thanks so much. And obviously, importantly, best of luck on the 27th of July when you make that middleweight debut. And as always, we'll be rooting for you.
Absolutely.
I'll see you soon, guys. Right? Thanks very much.